is a genuine live peacock at Govardhan Hill. We paid for him to come and sing. But I'm still not sure if everybody can hear me okay.
So it's a bit soft, but it's definitely audible.
Chaitanya Prabhu, can you hear? Chaitanya Prabhu, can you all hear?
So I could hear the first time Mahaprabhu was asking. I think it's breaking up.
The problem with this would be you won't be able to get comments from others, but we can. I unplug it and plug it in. Good sound. Good sound. Yeah, good sound. This will work. I didn't do this before. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay now? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Yes,
Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Yeah.
We want medium Hare Auto. This is Nam Sankirtan Prabhu. We're getting your darshan and his wonderful devotee. Sometimes from Russia, don't tell anybody that right now. Or from Govardhan Hill or from Soho. There's a Sankirtan leader there. Hare Krishna. There's a few devotees with us here tonight. So we'll go ahead and just say a few prayers and start. Gora Draganya Gana Go Chibaloruharam Go Gopyara Kopa Briksham Gopalagadadati Deshikavaram Satatam. Breaking up, I don't know what to say. Kichuna Bachila Jachi Premananda Emona Goranga Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Nam Hare, Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje, Se Hoyamara Prana Re. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Parama Pumatan Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Judi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pidva Rishe Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm really sorry about all the disturbance. Just pretend that you're hearing from someone at Govardhan Hill. And Giriraj doesn't always appreciate phones and internet connections and so many different things. So we're trying. So for those of you who are here, we speak every Sunday on Embankment of Separation. We have a group of friends in South Africa. And tonight we actually have more devotees here in person than we do online. What, 2, 4, 6, 7 devotees here in person. And we've been, as I mentioned, been speaking from Embankment of Separation. And we went on to chapter 2. And in our first session on that particular chapter, we spoke about the qualification to hear. Because my Guru Maharaj spoke about how the Caitanya Charitamrita is postgraduate study. And he says, I'm a fool. Speaking about it, he says, I'm a fool because I don't know who's qualified to hear this and who's not. He said, all the students here are like crows, but I'm begging mercy from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because Kakera Garuda Kore. Mahaprabhu can make a crow into Garuda. And so then he begins to speak about why he's speaking on this particular topic. And we had a session about this particular session just on this topic. What is the qualification to hear? Now, I don't want to review all of that, but since a lot of us are new here, and because what we're going to jump into is pretty kind of the deep end of the swimming pool, maybe it's a good thing to start off with. We analyzed some statements from Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and different acharyas, and it's not always what we sometimes think in our society. Oftentimes we're a little nervous about all higher topics. Is that legal? I don't know if that's bona fide or not. This is, I told this story, I just have to tell it. We, at chapter 2, which is a beggar of praying, wonderful story about how Krishna becomes a beggar, a sannyasi beggar, to alleviate the sulkiness of Srimati Radharani. He has to become a sannyasi beggar, and that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we printed that story once in our Bindu magazine. And shortly after we sent the magazine out, I got an email from someone asking me to unsubscribe. And he was very disturbed. He said, this story, this is too high. I can't hear this kind of thing. So I said, okay, we subtracted him. But if we think about the matter carefully, and if anybody's really interested, we gave a very elaborate, in-depth discussion about this for an hour and a half. I'm just going to touch on a little bit of it now. A lot of questions come up. If you say all these topics are legal, does that mean that we should cut out sections of the book? Is Chaitanya Charitamrita illegal, at least Ancha Leela, and parts of Adi Leela and Madhya Leela too? Is it illegal? What about Krishna book? There's 5 chapters in Krishna book speaking about the Rasa Leela. And what about Tulsi prayers that we have in the morning? Inibidhanadvara, Sakirano Koro. We're praying every day to Tulsi, please make me into a gopi. Is that sahaja? No, we're following Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada wanted us not only to read Krishna book, but to distribute Krishna book. And we were mentioning how we used to go to rock and roll concerts. And sometimes in the parking structure, it was really hellish. I'm saying it on, you can appreciate maybe. It looked like fog. It's just all marijuana smoke. And you go up to the car, your poor brahmachari, and there's a couple and they're doing something we don't want to talk about. And you have to like beat on the window. And we give them this book. We say, hey, look, George Harrison signed this. And they, wow, man, that's really cool. And they would take a Krishna book. And the guy's like completely intoxicated out of his brain. Doesn't have very many clothes on, maybe. It's a completely crazy thing. But they take Krishna book and it's bona fide. Not only do we want them to take the book, but we'd like it if they read the book. I think it's bona fide to say that. So very quickly, if we think about these points I'm making, it's very clear, isn't it? That there must be something a little bit more to it here. This illegal notion, because otherwise we'd stop Tulsi Puja every day. Otherwise we wouldn't read Krishna book. We wouldn't read Chaitanya Charitamrita. There must be something more to it. And we turn, as part of our exploration, we turn to some comments from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Chaitanya Sikshamrita, but also from a lecture Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave here at Radhakund one year, not at Radhakund, but we're not too far, where he addressed the devotees and he said that today we want to speak something about Radha Krishna Leela. And he told them, I know you're not yet ready for it. He said, but you should know such things exist. He said, our goal is not anartha nibriti, to become free from anarthas. Now that may be shocking to some devotees because we sometimes think that's the goal, become free from anarthas, right? He says, our goal is artha prabriti. We want something positive. We're not focusing on the negative. We want something positive. And the Vikriditam Vajavadu Biridam Chavishno, this famous verse we spoke about quite a bit from 10th canto, about how if someone hears Vikriditam Vajavadu Biridam Chavishno, the pastimes between the unmarried gopis, and Krishna and the Rasa Leela, that's the hridroga, the hridroga asa pahinotya chirina dura. That's the medicine to free ourselves from lust. But it must be done in the right way. And it said, Shadanvito, it should be, we should hear with faith. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he said that our goal is not anartha nibriti, our goal is artha prabriti. If all that we do is pursue anartha nibriti, we may become nirvisesa shunyavadis, we may become impersonalists. And by the way, we had a group of devotees from China, I don't know, 15 years ago or 20 years ago in Puri on Prikramas, the first time this group had ever come to India. And we spoke to them about a couple of different types of Chaya Bhakti, Pratibimba Bhakti, different types of Bhakti Abhas, Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas and Chaya Bhakti Abhas, or a reflection in the shadow and the difference. And how of the two, if you have a tree on the bank of a lake, there's a reflection and there's a shadow connecting the tree. The reflection looks much better. There's color, there's form. The shadow is just something vague. It doesn't look good at all. So you ask the question, which is better? And everybody usually says the reflection. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says no. The shadow is better because the shadow is connected to the tree, whereas the reflection is not. And he says the two, Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas, means that Bhakti Abhas, which is like a reflection of something. And that's the Bhakti Abhas of the Mayavadis. In Jagannath Puri, even at the Govardhan Mutt, which is a place of the Shankaracharya of Puri, it's a dyed-in-red, hardcore Mayavad place, they chant the Hare Krishna mantra. They worship a deity of Krishna there. And there's many impersonalists in Orissa and throughout India who chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So, but their chanting is Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas. It's a reflection. It looks good. And sometimes I'm mentioning this group of Chinese devotees because we spoke about these two different types of Bhakti Abhas and how the shadow was always better because the shadow is connected. The shadow, Chaya Bhakti Abhas, is a devotee who is initiated, he has guru, but he's not able to follow the principles very well. And Bhaktivinoda says that Bhakti Abhas is better than the Pratibimba Bhakti Abhas of the Mayavadis, who may be so good and perfect, possibly, about following regulated principles and being very strict in their brahmacharya and their sannyas vows and what they eat and renouncing sleep, etc., because they're not connected to the parampara. They're not directly connected with Krishna. And when we said this, one of the leaders in the yatra, the Chinese devotees, came up to me afterwards and he said, Prabhu, now I understand. I had this great doubt for many years because I would see different Buddhist monks who were incredible. They were so good at controlling their senses and things. And then I would see some ISKCON devotees, even sannyasis, even gurus sometimes. As they say in America, stuff happens. Right? Problems would come up. And they don't look very good compared to these Buddhist gurus. But now you've answered the question. So we spoke in that way that we should understand, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, he said, you must know that such things exist. And we should understand there's a difference between the hearing of an exalted Vaishnava. Someone may have come and just given up the whole world, and now they're taking shelter of Govardhan at Govinda Kund or something, and they're chanting 3 lakhs a day or something. Some Vaishnavas are doing. And maybe they become so attracted to Radha Krishna and Braj in a natural, honest way, through all the different levels of bhakti, Shraddha, Ruchi and Bhav and so many, that they've become so fixed that they're not interested in Bhagavad Gita. And if you go and want to read Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata to them, they go away. I don't want to hear that. They just want to hear about Radha Krishna. So we can't imitate that. If someone tries to imitate that, that's really, really wrong. Bhagavad Gita is very, very valid for us. And it's very important for us. But there are people like that. But trying to imitate that platform is what's very wrong. And sometimes devotees want to do that. Oh, Prabhu, I'm just a Rasik Vaishnava. I don't read the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the second canto, third canto, Time from the Atom. I mean, give me a break. I'm just go right to the 10th canto, and I'm very, very Rasik. I read Caitanya Charitamrita like that. We have to follow the orders of Guru. And therefore, Sukadeva Goswami says it Shraddhanvito. We should hear with faith. We should hear from Gurudev. And Gurudev knows what we need to hear. Srila Prabhupada knows what we need to hear. Now, one comment, which is a little controversial, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to state my humble opinion. That is that Srila Prabhupada spoke many times in a general way for the entire institution. And sometimes there may be different instructions for individuals. I don't want to give examples, but I know a few examples that Prabhupada privately told some devotees certain things which he did not tell to other devotees. Because, and if that word got out, then everybody might say, well, I should be one of those intimate devotees who got a special instruction also. And what is this general thing? You're not your body. My God, I've heard that so many times. And chant 16 rounds, follow 4 principles, give me a break. But Srila Prabhupada saw there's a necessity for that. And we should understand, Jiva Goswami says this in Paramatma Sandarbha, when we hear from someone, we should understand who is the audience. What is their purpose in speaking? And I've seen sometimes devotees, even mature persons who are intelligent and learned, become discouraged with our society because I'm just tired of hearing this, not your body stuff over and over again, and vegetarianism, and come on. They want to hear something more. And I can understand. why they might feel frustrated. But what they don't understand is the necessity of that kind of topic for new people. In St. Petersburg on the street, in London on the street, you can't go out and start talking to people about, Krishna taking sannyas and Radharani and this and that. And this is God, he's a blue boy with cows and he has a lot of girlfriends, and they'll lock you up. They did lock up some of the early devotees in New York City. They thought they were completely crazy. They put them in a Bellevue hospital, mental hospital. Kirtanananda was one of them, because he's trying to say that God is a blue boy with a lot of cows and that. And the guy must be crazy. So they locked him up. People, we have to learn the art of speaking to people according to their need. And that requires some selflessness, especially when we become a little more mature as devotees. We'd like to hear something nice. You study how Bhaktivedanta Maharaj speaks, or my Guru Maharaj, or Prabhupada. When they they give a public talk. They're invited to a town hall or something. They give some talk. They'll say some very general things about the mode of goodness or this or that. But then see when they're speaking to a group of disciples at Govardhan, or in my case, my Guru Maharaj in Bhubaneswar or something, or Prabhupada's case, in Nectar Devotion classes in Vrindavan. It's very, very different. We need to become mature enough to understand the whole world doesn't revolve around me. Atmavan Mandate Jagat. That everything's meant for my pleasure, including spiritual life. But, sorry, I just had to read some messages. But we should understand this movement is for the pleasure of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. This is Prabhupada's service, and we want to serve Prabhupada, serving his Guru Maharaj and serving his Guru, serving our line of acharyas, or serving Caitanya Mahaprabhu. We want to speak to new people, but we also need to understand. Because if we don't understand what is the goal, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in this lecture at Radhakund spoke about this, we have to understand what is the goal. There's a world of difference between someone reading Krishna book, or singing Tulsi prayers in the morning, or reading Chaitanya Charitamrita as a service for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. And that's an interesting conception, first of all. My Guru Maharaj spoke quite a bit about this too. We should hear for the pleasure of Guru. Sometimes we're hearing because, did our connection just drop? What's happening? Yeah. Can you still hear me, Chaitanya Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you. Loud and clear.
Great. So there's a world of difference between hearing as a service, reading as a service. Prabhupada gave these books for us. Shame on us if we don't want to read Srila Prabhupada's books, and including Krishna book and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Shame on us. Prabhupada worked so hard for it to help us understand what is the goal. But there's a world of difference between a sadhak, a conditioned soul like myself, reading something like that to understand what is the goal of my bhajan, the purpose of my bhajan, and the sadhu that we're mentioning, who might be at Govinda Kund chanting 3 lakhs a day, whose heart is very pure, and maybe he's having Leela Spurtis, he's seeing Radha and Krishna sometimes, and he's just not interested in Mahabharata or Ramayana or Bhagavad Gita or anything. It's not that he's wrong. I'm about to go in the dark here in a minute. It's not, unless somebody, oh, hey, Krishna Kund. Let's see, bring my backpack. You can bring my backpack, I'll fix it up. Sorry, power went off here. I've got a power bank inside my backpack. You can keep the light going. So there's a world of difference between that sadhu and ourselves as sadhaks. And we should understand that. Power's coming back now? Okay. Anyway, it won't hurt to have it around. Strap it there, thanks. Okay. I'm just going to get it out just in case. And maybe you can be in charge of that if something happens. So, okay, so that's our kind of review for the first session we gave on this chapter. Then in a second session, we spoke of one sentence really. The Guru Maharaj is saying Mahaprabhu was Krishna. He's non-different from Krishna, only his mood is different. Krishna came in the form of Mahaprabhu to teach us how to surrender to Krishna. And he sang some song from Saranagati, the first song, about the meaning of Saranagati. And he spoke about, trying to see here when we said this, about how Mahaprabhu gives Krishna prema through the devotees. And in our last session, we spoke something about the meaning of the Mahabhadanyaya verse, which is written by Rupa Goswami, and why it is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Mahabhadanyaya avatar, why he's so merciful, because he's in the mood of Radha. And in no other incarnation is in the mood of Radha. And we spoke something about Parasya Shakti, Vividaiva Shruyate, how the Lord has multifarious potencies, one of which is his Karuna Shakti, his mercy potency. The personification of the mercy potency is Radharani. The personification of kindness, of mercy. So that Karuna Shakti is generally controlled by the Lord's Icha Shakti, his desire potency. And we gave some different examples of this. But the purport is that generally people don't hear about Srimati Radharani. They don't come in contact with her because the Icha Shakti controls that. And people, yeyatam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamiham. According to how they approach the Lord, he gives a fair deal and he gives them accordingly. But in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Icha Shakti is no longer in control of the Karuna Shakti. And the Karuna Shakti is just giving mercy freely everywhere. And therefore he's Mahabhadanyaya avatar, the most merciful incarnation. And we spoke something about what it is that he's giving. It's not, both his mood is very, very merciful, but also the quality of what he's giving is also a very, very astonishing thing. And Guru Maharaj explained then how he says in the 12th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami gives a list of innumerable devotees. He says, I cannot enumerate all the associates of Mahaprabhu, still I will give some. Mahaprabhu appeared here with his Dham and associates to give that prema and to teach us how to surrender. Because without that prema, there's no question of surrender at all. Without that prema or love, your so-called surrender is either artificial, conditional, or partial. It will not be true or complete. So this is a really interesting point. We read Chaitanya Charitamrita. We read the first chapter, the second chapter. We go through, I read a chapter a day, someone says, or this or that. But do we really think, do we ask many questions? Do we ask a question, why does Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami bother to list all these associates and devotees in the beginning? What's the necessity? Why don't we just go on and hear about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu? What is the necessity? It's a foundational part of the book. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godade Pushpavanto Chitra Sanda Tamomadu. I'm thinking another verse. So first verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vande Goro Isha Bhakta Ishamishabhatarakam Tap Prakashan Shachak Takti Krishna Chaitanya Samnikam. He speaks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears in 6 forms, not 5, not Panchata, but 6. Panchatattva plus Guru. And what is so important about that? What is so foundational about that? This is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed that prema. And indirectly, I think too, hearing from my Guru Maharaj quite a lot, in this chapter, what he's indicating is the importance, the necessity of hearing these things from a proper source. And hearing with faith. And then we went on to, I'm still doing a little review of our last session now. We went on to read some aspects of an article by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta called The Associates of Sri Chaitanya. Maybe we should just plug it into that power bank and just leave it because it's going on and off. So I just want to read a few sentences from this article. It's really, really profound. He says, the associates of Sri Chaitanya are constituents of himself. It's our object in the short paper to study the implications of these doctrines. So there's a deep implication of that. And this is what he's going to speak about, how the associates of Mahaprabhu are constituents or parts of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And he says that Mahaprabhu, Krishna's active existence involves the undivided operation of 6 divine entities, the gurus, the devotees, the avatars, divine manifestations, divine powers, and God in himself. This is the Panchata plus 1, Guru Dev. So he says that as Krishna Chaitanya is identical with Krishna, the existence of Sri Chaitanya also implies the cooperation of the above 6 divine energies. Okay? It's a little technical language sometimes. When Mahaprabhu is pleased, I'm going to paraphrase some of the things he says because his language is so high. When Mahaprabhu is pleased to appear in this world, then we should understand that all these 6 constituents of himself also must make their appearance. And he says that the appearance, if you think you have Mahaprabhu separate from the devotees, it's just illusion. He says in the same way, when the devotees are there, it means the Lord is there. He says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject. And if we want to understand him, we have to take shelter of the devotees. That's interesting. And we spoke some about that in our last session, and how Srila Prabhupada, I read some different things from Prabhupada's lectures, how we have to strive to improve, and we should want to associate with higher devotees. And he says, I'll just read a sentence or two from the last session. Vaidhi Bhakti is apprenticeship. Real Bhakti, Para Bhakti, is Raganuga Bhakti. We have to come to the point of Raganuga Bhakti. Prabhupada's saying this. This is in 1972, 12th of November, here in Vrindavan. And we got into that lecture in different ways. And Prabhupada speaking about the importance of higher association. Prabhupada also told the staff at the Back to Godhead magazine in a discussion they had on the 24th of December, 1969, very, very early in the days of the movement. They were asking him about standards for Back to Godhead. And one of them said, well, Prabhupada, should we print things about Radha and Krishna? And Prabhupada said, no, don't do that. And then Prabhupada paused for a moment. And he said that, but we should not boycott the gopis. The gopis should be, Radha Krishna should be there some, but we have to be careful how we present them. Prabhupada said, how can we avoid them? They are our worshipful devotees. So I'd like to take you now to a few verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is from Madhya Lila chapter 8, which I find very, very illuminating, very deep in understanding this principle about the importance of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm trying to understand, we're going back and looking at things. Mahaprabhu is Mahavadanyaya avatar. Why? Because he's in the mood of Radha. He's come to give Radha Bhav, the mood of Srimati Radharani and the gopis. And the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are extremely important. We heard something about why, but let's hear a little something more. I'm just going to sing this and we can chant Hare Krishna in response. Radha Krishna Lila Ati Gurutar Dasya Vatsalyadi Bhave Nahoe Gochar Bolo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Nam Sankirtan. Kaviraj Goswami says that Radha Krishna Lila a Ati Gurutar. Ati means very much. Gurutar means confidential. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are very, very confidential. Dasya Vatsalyadi Bhavi Nahoy Gochar. Well, who am I? I'm just a rotten, nasty bag full of material desires. And now Kaviraj Goswami is speaking about devotees in Dasya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Adi meaning etc., meaning other rases, Shanta Ras and Sakya Ras. He says they can't understand. They can't appreciate these pastimes. Well, then what to speak of me? And how is it that I'm supposed to go to Tulsi Puja every day? And if I don't go to Tulsi Puja, I get in trouble, right? Because we're supposed to do that. Kaviraj Goswami goes on. Sabiyeka Saki Gane Ihan Adikar Saki Hoite Hoi Lila Vishta Bolo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. Shabi Eka Saki Ganya Ihan Adhikar. Only the gopis have the adhikar, the qualification to hear these pastimes. And it's the gopis, Saki Hoite Hoi, a Lilar Bishtar. The gopis, they're able to expand. Lila Bishtar. Bishtar means to expand. They're able to expand these pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Saki Vina e Lila Pushti Nahi Hoi. Saki Lila Bishtariya Saki Ashwadoy. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Saki Vina, without the gopis. Prabhupada said, don't boycott the gopis. Without the gopis, Saki Vina, a Lila Pusha Nahi Hoy. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna cannot be nourished. We sing every day, Srila Prabhupada instructed us to sing every day for our Guru Dev Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Sijaya Yali Bir Yuktira Pekshaniya Tatati Dakshat Ativalabashavande Guru. Sometimes they say, well, my Guru Dev, he's not a gopi. What does this mean? Sometimes the devotees don't have faith. They say, well, this is something higher. It's not about my guru. Maybe I should leave him and go find a gopi guru. Something more. And Prabhupada, Kaviraj Goswami supports some of that in a way here. He says, Saki Vina, without the Sakis, a lila pushta nahi hoy. Pushta means to nourish. Without the gopis, the Vishtariya Saki Ashwadoy. It's only the gopis who do two things, Vishtariya and Ashwadoy. They expand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and they taste the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. In, gosh, I don't know what year it was, sometime in the early 70s, maybe 73, 74, like that, maybe 75. Srila Prabhupada was in Hawaii, and Rameshwar Prabhu, his disciple, he asked him about this verse, Nikunja Yunogati Keli Sijai. And Prabhupada gave a very interesting answer. He said that means book distribution. That you may say, well, you guys, you come on, you're just saying that for your institution or whatever. But wait a minute, let's really think about it very deeply. That activity of distributing Krishna book, this is something which is being done for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna, and it expands their pastimes. So that so many other people, conditioned souls, rotten, nasty drunkards and prostitutes, all of a sudden they're getting a chance to hear and chant about Radha and Krishna. This is an amazing pastime of Radha and Krishna. It's in a pastime of so this is the kirtan of our sampradaya that we like to speak about quite often. We like that phrase, that we're assisting the gopis. Because only the gopis, Saki Bina e Lila Pushta Nahi Hoy. Only the gopis can do this. Saki Lila Bishtari is Saki Asradoy. But the gopis, they've come, the Lalitas come as Srup Damodar Goswami. Vishaka's come as Ramananda Roy. And they're expanding the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and Jagannath Puri by singing songs of Chandidas and Vijayapati and Bilvamangala Thakur, etc., to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who's in the mood of Radha and who's relishing those pastimes. It's a very interesting pastime. There's so many sadhus in India who are doing bhajan to purify themselves, to get liberation, to get mystic powers. Sometimes people do it to get a husband or a wife. So many people are doing bhajan for so many different reasons. It's for the pleasure of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. That's an extraordinary thing. And not only are they doing that bhajan, but they're engaging their associates in doing that bhajan. Their associates are engaging their associates, who are engaging their servants, who are engaging their servants. And this is a kirtan of our sampradaya. We're assisting our Gurudev, who's assisting his guru, is assisting his guru in doing this kirtan for the pleasure of Krishna, who's come as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Radha Bhava Duty, Sivalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. He's Krishna, but he's in the mood and has a complexion of Radha. And in the mood of Radha, he wants to hear about the confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So this is legal. It's legal to read Caitanya Charitamrita. What Swarup Damodar Goswami and Roy Ramananda did was legal. They were singing not for their own pleasure. In the beginning of Caitanya Charitamrita, Kabir Goswami says that Tate Krishna Bhaji Kore Gudidana Dada Sakirano Gata Koro. Oh, Tulsi, please, I want to become a gopi. Please make me a gopi, make me a gopi, make me a gopi. We sing that every day. Well, that's a bit over the top, isn't it? Huh? What is our bhajan? Tate Krishna Bhaji Kore Guru Seva. Our Krishna bhajan is our Guru Seva. We can't get away from Gurudev. We're doing this bhajan because it pleases Gurudev. We're doing this bhajan because Gurudev wants us to do this bhajan. Please understand. It's not that tomorrow morning when I'm chanting my japa, Krishna's dancing with the gopis and Rasalila. All of a sudden he stops. And Radharani says, hey, Shyam Sundar, what is it? And Krishna said, oh, Madhavananda's chanting his japa. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but it doesn't work like that. It's not that Krishna is coming running. Speak like this. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur touches on this subject a little extensively in his Raghavatman Chandrika. We may become disturbed. He says that Krishna doesn't hear the voices of the bhajan of the devotees. Well, then what am I doing? Everybody tells me I should cry to Krishna. Krishna's right there. Krishna's in his name. I saw him then go. Calm down. It's okay. Krishna does hear a wonderful ear. What is Krishna's ear? Krishna's ear is Sri Gurudev. Krishna hears, he collects that bhajan through Gurudev. Vinasta Masta Shastra, Acharya Mam Vijnanayam Navam collects that bhajan for Krishna. And he goes to Krishna and says, this person, you should session. Back to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, back to Krishna. This is our bhajan. And anything else is just some illusion, some fantasy. I'm chanting and Krishna's going to come and talk to me and this and this. And Krishna may, if Gurudev blesses me. And we should always remember that Krishna says in the Adi Purana, Ye me bhakta jana parta, na me bhakta sate janaha, mad bhaktanam. He says he's my devotee. Krishna says, I have no idea who he is. He's not my devotee. But the devotee of my devotee is my real devotee. So this is a point that Gorgovinda Maharaj is making in this beginning of this chapter. So that's kind of a review. And we've gone now to the time we should have already finished. Chaitanya Prabhu, I started 20 minutes late. Can we go a little bit late today? Do I have your permission? Is it okay with everybody? I can't.
No problem from my side. Anybody else?
Okay, Krishna Balaram Prabhu, Himanti, Lalita.
We all good, Prabhu.
Okay. All right. We're getting Mukunda's permission. We're good. All right. So I want to read you a little something that Guru Maharaj says. So he speaks further then about the mercy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And he gives this verse, Uttama Adama Kichina Bachila Jachi Adile Kako. He's just destroying your garden next door. Kahe Premananda Himana Goranga Hridoyadariya Bol. That Caitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't consider who's Uttam, who's Adam. He embraces everyone, even the monkeys at Govardhan. He loves everyone. And he gives mercy to everyone. The monkeys are attacking her garden right next to us right now. Sitting there. So he doesn't consider, this is his mercy. Speaking of Govardhan, Raghunatha Goswami, in the last verse was Govardhan Basa Prarthana, that the Kripa of Mahaprabhu, the Karuna, is Nirupadika Kus. He gives mercy even to monkeys, even to Republicans from Texas and America, even the Russians, following Mr. Putin. So he gives mercy to everyone freely. He doesn't consider who is Uttam, who's Adam, but he's giving freely love of Krishna to everyone. So he speaks about who is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And this is the topic of the book of Bias Person. I'm a publisher. I'm printing this book. I'm editing this book. This is my Guru Maharaj's words. But in spite of that obvious prejudice, I have to freely say that I think this is a very important book for all devotees to read. And I'll say, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj once said, this is my favorite book, Embankment of Separation. And it isn't rushed, by the way. So this book, why is it so important? Because it gives us someone. Now, we've heard so many times in ISKCON that Caitanya Mahaprabhu opened vegetarian restaurants all over the world, and that he told everybody, you're not your body, and he gave everybody lots of mercy. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu was much, much, much more than that. It's not that Caitanya Mahaprabhu was just kind of a doorway to Radha Krishna, and after you go past Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you just close the door and throw him away, and now I'm with Radha Krishna, I have no interest in Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta taught us, by his installation of the deities, he would install three deities on the altar in general, Radha Krishna and Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Not Gaurnitai, but he would put Mahaprabhu there with Radha Krishna, because as he wrote in one poem, he said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. The Caitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna. And without Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna Leela is not complete. And this is something that Kaviraj Goswami speaks about. You'll find this discussion in one place in the 8th chapter of the Madhya Leela, in the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Caitanya Mahaprabhu, when Ramananda Roy speaks about so many things, about surrender to Krishna, and Mahaprabhu keeps saying, Eho Bhaya, Age Kaha Ar, that's external, can you say something more? And then finally he begins to speak about mamata, when the devotee has some attitude that this person belongs to me. It's like we have some mamata for our parents, or for our child, or for a friend, for a Guru. This is my Guru Dev. These are my friends here. They belong to me. That's mamata. So when that mamata comes up in a relationship with Krishna, that's the beginning. And then he speaks about, Ramananda Roy spoke something about Dasya Ras. And Mahaprabhu said, this is really good. He said, but is there something more? He said, well, and he started speaking about Sakya Ras, cowherd boy. Mahaprabhu said, this is really, really good, but is there anything more? Yeah, Vatsalya Ras, that's nice, that's really good, but is there something? He said, this is very, very good. Can you somehow expand this? And then Ramananda Roy began to speak about Radharani. And Mahaprabhu said, this is just so excellent. Is it possible? Can there be anything more than this? And Ramananda Roy continued. He said, when Radha and Krishna become one. And what is it when Radha and Krishna become one? That's Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So this actually, to understand Caitanya Mahaprabhu, is postgraduate study in Krishna consciousness. My Guru Maharaj put it in this way once. He said that if you want to understand Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you have to understand Srimati Radharani. Because Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Srupam. Mahaprabhu was in the mood of Radha. So this book, Embankment of Separation, is meant to help us to understand that mood of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and how he's Krishna himself, but he has, as Guru Maharaj says, and relish Radha Prem, the love experienced by Radha Rani. Therefore, Sachi Garbha Sindhu, he came out of the womb of Sachi Mata to fulfill three desires, three types of greed. We spoke about that in the first chapter. First chapter of Embankment of Separation is called Greed of the Lord, and how these three types of greed were there in Krishna, which were not fulfilled in Krishna Lila. Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidusovanaya. The 6th verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, how he wants to know Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kiddiso, what is the glory of Radharani's love? Swadja Yena Bhuta Madhurima Kiddisova, how does Radharani relish my beauty? And what does he, Sokyam Chashamanana Bhavada Kiddisam Vati Lobhat, what kind of happiness, what kind of pleasure does Radharani get from relishing my beauty? How can I understand that? Krishna's asking that question. That's Sachinandan and Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And Guru Maharaj Singh goes on to speak about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a combined form of Radha and Krishna and two opposites together. And I'm sorry, we laid a lot of foundation in this session. Pretty much it's all been foundational because I really wanted to get onto something which we're not going to touch on today because it's just too much. It's some very, very difficult thing. We can touch a little bit. In Adi Lila chapter 1, text 4, Kaviraj Goswami gives a verse which is credited to Sri Damodar Goswami. Anarpita chirim chirat karuna avatirna kolo samapaitam anujala rasa swabhakti shriyam hari padata sundara duti kadamba sandipitaha sada hridaya kandare padatuva sachinandanaha. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's come to give anarpita chirim chirat. It hasn't been given. He's come to give this causeless mercy. This is his purpose. But what is he giving? Samapaitam means to ujjvala rasa svabhakti shriyam. He's giving unata ujjvala rasa, madhurja ras, the love that the gopis have for Krishna. But not just unata ujjvala rasa svabhakti shriyam. Swabhakti means his own bhakti. Swa means his own. And Sriya means the essence of that. So what is the meaning of this line? It means that he's giving Manjari Bhav. That's the essence of it, Unata Ujjvala Rasa. And it's something, it's his own Swabhakti, because he's in the mood of Radha. And he's coming in the mood of a Manjari himself to serve Radha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is adopting that particular mood. So we gave some elaborate classes on this verse a long time ago, another different discussion. I won't go in there today, but let's go on with Embankment. It says, then we discuss what is Radha Prem and what are its characteristics. Okay, so if it's this Unata Ujjvala Rasa Sabhakti Shriyam, this mood to serve Radharani and understand Radharani's mood, then what is Radha Prem? What is the characteristics of Radha Prem? He says many characteristics are there, but we'll discuss one. How in Radha Prem, two opposites are mixed together. When Krishna assumed Radha Bhav, these two opposites appeared in Mahaprabhu. The opposites are Milan and Viraha, union and separation. Together they are there. Mahaprabhu is a combination of Radha and Krishna. So union is there and Viraha, separation is also there because he's crying for Krishna, feeling the acute pangs of separation from Krishna. In our next session, we'll speak about what I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I won't go into it right now, but I'll just give you a little tease. Guru Maharaj further examines this when we analyze this Viruddha Dharma. Viruddha means two opposites. It's some opposite. Viruddha Dharma, the nature of something, the Dharma is something which is Viruddha. There's some opposites there. When we analyze this Viruddha Dharma, it comes to three types: Brahma Ghat, Krishna Ghat, and Radha Prema Ghat. He says this is postgraduate study, so one should study it. First, we analyze Brahman, and how in Brahman he speaks about this tattva of Agahi. Two opposites are there. It's Brahman Nirgun and Brahma Sagun. Brahman without qualities and Brahman with qualities. So this is Brahma Ghat, and this is Viruddha Dharma. This is how two opposites are there. Then we'll go on to speak about Krishna Ghat, how there's different opposites within Krishna. and Radha Premagat, how there's different opposites within Srimati Radharani. So as he said, this is a postgraduate study, but one should study it. We should understand something about it, at least in a theoretical way. We're not like that Babaji. Remember at Govinda Kund, who's so elevated that he's crying and maybe seeing Radha and Krishna, and he has no interest in Bhagavad Gita. We need Bhagavad Gita, but we should understand. We should understand the nature, why Prabhupada gave us this prayer, why Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna book. We should understand what is our goal. If we don't understand what is our goal, how will we ever can be expected to go to that goal? But we need to hear about it from a proper source. As Baladi Vidyabhushan describes in the first part of his commentary in Tattva Sandarbha, he says that we should analyze the adhikar of the person's listening, their qualification, and their sambandha. I've mentioned this in a number of our previous sessions. I think these two principles are very important. It's like Anapayana, you were giving classes before in English to young students. So you have to understand what is their adhikar. If they're Russian speaking, and if you just start speaking away in English really fast like this, they're just going to die. You have to understand their adhikar. And you have to understand their sambandha. Sambandha means their connection. Why are they coming to your class? Maybe because you make good jokes. You're a funny person. You do this, you talk about plants, or you do something that they like. So that's their sambandha. We have to touch on that also. We have to there has to be some connection between the listener and the subject matter. So these are important principles, foundational principles, when we approach a subject like this. We should understand we're approaching it because we should know what is the goal. We should know very well. Otherwise, if people come to you and they say, okay, you're a Gaudiya Vaishnava, huh? What's the difference between a Gaudiya Vaishnava and a Madhva Vaishnava or a Sri Vaishnava? And you say, well, Krishna, we worship Radha Krishna. Hey, they worship Radha Krishna. In Tirupati, there's a Radha Krishna temple. The Sri Vaishnavas worship. The Madhvas also worship Radha Krishna sometimes. So what do we, the difference is Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But if you just say that, they may say, oh, that's we heard that's the guy who opened the vegetarian restaurants. We heard from really one of your ISKCON people about that. If that's all that we have to say, it's going to be very disappointing. And then you're not going to be able to support Prabhupada's mission, and you won't be able to defend yourself, and you may become confused, as I've seen some devotees even just, oh, maybe I should go somewhere else or do something else. And then it becomes very tragic. It's an unfortunate loss because you had the most wonderful, amazing, amazing thing in the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and you've lost it. So I want to stop there. And okay, Caitanya Prabhu, we have a little problem. I want to give some opportunity for everybody to make some comments. That's, for me, the best part of our session. But for you to hear me nicely, it requires this mic here. But I'm going to unplug. Otherwise, the devotees who are here can't hear you. Okay, so just be patient with me. We may have to plug and unplug. Sorry? Do we have one? You're asking? I just talk. You have something? Okay, we'll go ahead and start though. But let's say, hey, Hemanti, would you like to share something? Did you win a prize today? Are you there? Now you can't hear me as well because I just unplugged. Or Lalita, would you like to share anything that you may have won today? Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm going to Mukunda Prabhu. Mukunda, are you there? Would you like maybe you unmute yourself? Do you have any reflections or comments? You always have good things to say.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can? Okay, good. Yes, Prabhu, I just want to thank you for today's class. I also had doubts previously, about the Buddhists. I always thought that they were really jacked up and, they were well disciplined and so forth. But the example you used of the tree, the shadow, and the reflection, I thank you for that because now I know my understanding is much better now. Even though, I perform my services with defects and so forth, I can still be reassured that I'm okay. So thank you for that example. Also, another one is the Panchatattva plus one that you mentioned. This is like something that's just taken me aback here, because normally we say Panchatattvikam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Kyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. At least now I know that my understanding of this is much deeper now. So whenever I chant this mantra, I can also include Guru in my meditation when I do this. So thank you very much for that, Prabhuji. Is that okay? Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay.
But I'm okay. We're just trying to hook up an external speaker. So we'll be able to have, I can still have this plugged in. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So I can go ahead and just plug it in right now. Yeah. Okay. Interesting thought comes to my mind. Why don't we just recite that Panchatattva Makam Krishnam verse before we chant japa? Why do we chant the Panchatattva mantra? Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. It's an interesting thing. According to the Gaudiya Vaishnava history, as far as I've understood, that this verse, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, was composed by Jagannath Das Babaji. It's a fairly recent contribution. Why do we chant that verse instead of, why don't we chant Panchatattva Makam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Surubakam Bhakta Avataram Bhakta Kyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam, which describes the Panchatattva? Why do we recite? What is the difference between these verses? One is that Shiva Sari Gora Bhakta Brinda. The phrase Gora Bhakta Brinda. In this verse that we recite, there's also 6 aspects there. Gora Bhakta Brinda means the devotees of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. It means Gurudev. It's a very, very important thing. Himanti made some comment too. She said, sorry, you were breaking up. I always win prizes in this wonderful association. Thank you for the class. What really stood out for me was hearing as devotional service. And the fact that both separation and union is present in Lord Chaitanya. This is a really important point. It's a subtle point. Hearing as service. Gurudev really, really appreciates it. I remember traveling with my Guru Maharaj in 1973. We went to New Vrindavan. It was a very, 1993. It was a very a time of change in New Vrindavan. And we won't go into what was going on. There was a little unusual. Radhanath Maharaj was there at that time. And it was a very beautiful connection between him and our Guru Maharaj. But there was one of my godbrothers who didn't go to any of Guru Maharaj's classes. And he was cooking for Guru Maharaj. And he was working really hard. And he was very sincere. And he really wanted to make nice preparations for Guru Maharaj. But Guru Maharaj was not very happy. And he told him, Are Baba, I'm only coming once a year to America. You only see me once a year. So you should be able to come to class. You figure out some way. Yes, you should cook. You should do service. That's nice. But you should also hear. We should think about the pleasure of Gurudev. Gurudev's not traveling right now. Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, we just had an exchange with him this morning. He's in Tashkent. And he told me that there's so many very sweet, simple devotees here, and they're taking such good care of me. He's not going there because the fruits are so good. And because the devotees give him so many nice sweets and whatever like that. That's not why he's going there. He's going there because they're simple, because they like to hear. And if we want to please him, the best way to please him is to hear from him in a sincere way. That pleases him so very, very much. So we don't often think about that because we're so selfish in this world. We grew up, before I joined, I had a record collection. I had all the Beatles records and the Rolling Stones, and I don't want to tell you about it all. And that's very depressing. And all of that were sound vibrations which helped to bind me to this material world, to condition me. So we're like that in the material world. Everybody's hearing so many sounds, but we're hearing for our pleasure. And we especially want to hear this 3-word mantra, which we talk about sometimes, which if I hear this mantra just once, people in the material world think my whole life is perfect now because I heard this mantra. What is the mantra? 3 words: I love you. If I hear someone say, I love you, based on my selfishness. We want to hear, our seeing is all based on our selfishness. But we should understand the topmost service is to see Krishna. We go to the deity to see Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. When a girl, when a boy that she's in love with is looking at her and he's giving her that particular look of love and appreciation, the girl feels so happy. When the girl looks at the boy in the same way, he feels so happy. And this is a mundane example, a perverted example, but Krishna gets so much pleasure from the glances of the gopis. That glance is better than the best incense. It's better than offering chamaras and ghee lamps and so many, that their loving glance gives him so much pleasure. But we have a hard time understanding this principle. That's a service for the deity, for Gurudev, for the deity. Then we tend to think that's not a service. I'm enjoying it. We go to Darshan Artik and we come on afterwards and we say, hey, Krishna Kun, did you see the deities today? I really like that outfit. Isn't that so cool? They have like rainbow colors and things. That's real. I really like it when Indra Prabhu dresses the deities. When this devotee, I really like it when they do that. It just really touches my heart. I'm seeing the deities for my pleasure. Or we come out of class and wow, that was great. Did you hear that? It was such a good story. That was so funny what he said. It has really touched my heart. And it's all about me. But really, we're going there as a service. It's a very, very deep, profound principle. Really, surrender means this thing, and I'm hearing from Gurudev for Gurudev's pleasure, not for my selfish pleasure. So thank you, Hemante. It was a wonderful comment. I'm happy you got that. Okay, let's see. Krishna Balaram Prabhu, do you want to share anything? Can we get to see you? Hare Krishna, I'm Pranash Vilaji.
Go ahead. Just a quick question. You made the point of which I thought is an interesting point, that it's not us going directly to Krishna, but Krishna gets the message of us through the spiritual master or guru. My question is, then what is the process in that regard? I know our process is very much fixed on serving the guru, etc. But what does it mean? What does it actually mean? Do we need to tell the guru everything that we're doing? How does that actually connect up? Or yeah, I'll listen to your answer there, Prabhu.
Well, there's a general understanding, there's a deeper understanding, there's initial levels of it, there's deeper levels, there's very higher levels of that. It's a big subject. As a principle, you can Google sometimes or look in Prabhupada's folio to search for the phrase principle of guru. And that's an interesting thing, because that may sound a little impersonal. Gurudev's a person. You mean the principle of guru, but Prabhupada spoke a lot about the principle of guru. We can give an example, which I got from Bhakti Rupa Prabhu, that Gurudev is like a bank teller. And you go and you open up a bank account in the bank and you make friends with the bank teller. You're nice to him. If you're not nice to him, he may do something terrible. You have to, because he's your connection with the bank. You give him money and he finds signs of it. Now that bank teller later on, he may lose his job. He may get fired, or he may go to some other bank, or he may quit, retire, or whatever. Your money is there with the bank. Just because the teller is gone, that bank teller is doing a particular function. And that's the function that Gurudev does also. He's bringing us into the sampradaya in that sense. He's accepting us. And the devotee, by being initiated, is being accepted. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says he's being accepted by Krishna. Krishna accepts him as non-different from himself. And it's even possible, Hare Krishna, we don't like to think about this, but that Gurudev could leave this world. We still have a connection with Krishna. Or even, as we've seen sometimes the Guru has some problems and they go somewhere else. Does that mean that the connection that we have now is broken? It was only through that person? No, because that person was doing a function which was authorized by Srila Prabhupada, and he was doing the function of connecting you with our parampara. It doesn't mean that we don't need guidance. It doesn't mean that we don't need a personal connection, someone, but still that initiation is there. It was done in front of the deities. It was an authorized thing as long as all the normal protocol or system is done. And we promise to chant 16 rounds, follow 4 principles, etc. All those things are there. So that's a general connection that we have with Gurudev. And Gurudev, as a person, gets pleasure when he sees us doing kirtan. Just like everybody in our society, Krishna Balaram Prabhu, I'm sure you're guilty of this. Krishna Balaram Prabhu, those who don't know, he and his wife, Nandarani, two beautiful boys. Now, I'll bet anything, probably when they were like 6 months old or something, you thought they were incarnations, both of them. You see how he's playing kartals and he's dancing in the kirtan and he loves this. And it's very inspiring for the parents. I don't mean to belittle it at all. It's very inspiring for the parents. Sometimes they're not exactly on the level that we thought they were at that time. But the point I'm making is how much pleasure you got from that. Isn't it, Krishna Balaram? You're smiling, I see. We get so much pleasure seeing the child dancing in the kirtan, raising his hands in the air, and singing and things. And this is the same principle between guru and disciple. The parent gets pleasure when he sees the child chanting and dancing. Gurudev also gets pleasure when he sees us doing like that. And it's an amazing thing. Prabhupada once said, after giving a lecture in Conway Hall in London, he said that Narad Muni came, and Narad Muni was laughing to see all the Yavanas and Malechas doing kirtan. He got some pleasure from that. Prabhupada gets pleasure from that thing. So we're bringing him pleasure by following his instructions, by doing this system of bhajan, but not just in a mechanical way. And therefore we have to hear. The first thing is not kirtan. Within Navavidi Bhakti, or the 9 processes of devotional service, the first thing is shravan, shravanam kirtanam. We hear first. And without hearing, what kind of kirtan can we do? So we hear from Gurudev. And whether we hear from Gurudev, not just some information, we hear some shloka from Bhagavad Gita and we memorize that verse word for word. I heard this verse from Gurudev. We're hearing the emotions of Gurudev. We're hearing the feelings of Gurudev. But how can we experience that? Shusha Shoshadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Shan Mahat Seva Viprapunyatit and Sevana by serving Gurudev. But service begins with hearing. We should hear Gurudev tell us, do like this. I want water. Don't bring me milk. Bring me water. And Prabhupada says someone who's overly intelligent will go, water is very common. I'll bring Gurudev hot milk. Gurudev's asking for water. Bring what's being asked for. Maybe he can't digest milk. Right? So we should hear first, because by hearing them, we'll understand the mood of Gurudev and what it is that he wants. And then we can serve in that way. So that surrender means, that saranagati means that we begin to understand what is Gurudev's desire. And Gurudev doesn't want, I know one devotee who after he got initiated, he had a festival one year for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he invited, 20, 30 devotees from the temple or whatever. And when they came into his home, they were surprised to find that all over the walls were pictures of this devotee's guru. I mean, like 6-foot-high photos of his gurus everywhere on the walls. And in the kirtan, he was chanting his Gurudev's name and not Bhaktivinoda's name. And somebody said, something about it. It's a little strange. He said, well, I don't know Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but I know my Gurudev. And he said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur will be more pleased if I worship my Gurudev than if I worship Bhaktivinoda. That's a really interesting logic, isn't it? It might even be true Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he might, what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur want us to go and chant his names for? He might be more pleased if you chant the name of Prabhupada or the name of your Gurudev. But my doubt is this: will my Gurudev be more pleased? Will Srila Prabhupada be more pleased? And who is my connection? My connection is not with Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's there down the line. But my connection is with my Gurudev. And if my Gurudev doesn't like it, then what am I doing? So Gurudev is pleased when we do Krishna Kirtan. And when we hear from him, the mood of serving Radha Krishna. Is that okay, Krishna Balan Prabhu? It's pretty kind of preliminary what I'm saying, but something. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And what about Nandarani? Can we hear something from her? I always like to hear from Nandarani. Maybe we can even see her. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Do you
Thank
have
you
any
for the
reflections
class.
you want to share?
I do. Mukunda Prabhu mentioned the first one. I thought that the tree analogy was really great for me to understand that difference between that impersonalist type of mentality. And the word that struck me, Prabhu, was connection. That is such an important thing, to have that connection and to have the connection with Guru. So, and then Hemanti actually mentioned the second point that I also thought was really wonderful, and that is hearing as service. When you mentioned that, Prabhu, I actually thought about Srila Prabhupada. I think I read this in Leela Amrita, where Prabhupada was sitting and listening to Bhaktisiddhanta, and Bhaktisiddhanta then, Maharaj then said, I've marked him something like that. He listens well, or he hears well. And sorry, Prabhu, you're breaking up. Can't hear you, Prabhu. Can any of you hear Madhavananda Prabhu?
No, it's the video is also from.
No, can't hear him at all.
As I recall, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, I marked him. He likes to hear. Can't hear me at all. I don't know what to say.
You've just come back now, Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
This is. It was just the doctor. Okay, I'm sorry. So as I recall, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said, I've marked him. He likes to hear. Prabhupada attracted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta by his desire to hear from him.
So actually, when I read
Anything
that
else
past
you
time
wanna
in
share?
Leela, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you can hear. Actually, there was another just small point I wanted to check with you. As you were talking about Lord Chaitanya, I was thinking about how in Mayapur, there's this amazing temple that we have now. And, you know, we have beautiful Panchata and we have Nishingadev, and we also have Radha Madhava and the Astasakis. And so I was trying to connect that to the fact that, you know, Prabhupada says, don't boycott the gopis. So clearly we haven't boycotted the gopis in terms of the deities, especially in Mayapur. And so maybe it's just a contradiction in my mind, and maybe there's a history that I don't understand in terms of the Mayapur project, but is there a reason that specifically Prabhupada wanted Radha Madhava with the Astasakis in Mayapur?
That's an interesting question. As far as I know, would somebody please correct me. As far as I know, Srila Prabhupada didn't explain that. But Prabhupada did mention he wanted Radha Madhav, and in Mayapur he started first singing the song Jai Radha Madhav Kunja Bihari, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He wanted Radha Madhav, and he told the devotees there should be the Asasakis. So Prabhupada wanted that there, and Prabhupada saw this temple. I think it would be safe to say, this is we were speaking about today, the connection between the gopis and how the gopis, their Leela Bishtar, how they're expanding and nourishing and relishing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Without them, it can't be expanded. So many people are attracted to Radha Madhav, but they should understand that Radha Madhav means Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates also. The gopis mean his associates. That would be my humble understanding. Maybe Caitanya Prabhu has some other comments on that, or Nam Sankirtan Prabhu was here, somebody else, I don't know. My mic behind me? Oh, that doesn't help either, does it? Yeah, it's right here now. Hare Krishna. You can probably hear me better now. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. You want to share something? Let me just hand the mic to Nam Sankirtan Prabhu.
Just a small point. Dhananjaya Prabhu, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, I think it was him, he was narrating the story of how Prabhupada was deciding until the last moment what deities he wanted in Vrindavan temple. And at some point he came and he said, there'll be Radha Shyama Sundar and Ashtasakis. And then somehow or other he changed his mind again. So he also wanted the Ashtasakis in Vrindavan.
Very interesting. So it seems Srila Prabhupada was thinking about the Asasakis. He wanted them somewhere. He wanted them in Mayapur. Okay. Thank you, Nandarani. It's good to see you guys. We miss you guys very much. Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
I'm okay, Prabhu, for now. I think we can go through the room. I'm sure you want to get some inspiration from there as well.
Okay. Anybody here in the room want to share anything? Krishna Kron, you want to share anything? Or anybody? Prabhuji, anything you want? Anapani Radha. You have to come up here and take the mic. We're not going to embarrass you. Well, we could maybe embarrass you and put you on the camera. So it's more fun.
It's fine without.
What's that?
It's fine. Thank you so much for the class. It was my pleasure to be in your association, hear from you again. And I really like this point to hear again about Mahaprabhu. That, I mean, it sounds a little bit strange, but that Mahaprabhu is extended subject, and to understand him, we have to surrender to his devotees. And it was really interesting to hear how the Chaitanya Charitamrita started. So like big portion of that is dedicated to his associates. And again, so, and I was thinking about what you said regarding the hearing our bhajan as service to Gurudev, and about how sometimes we think like too high topics are illegal in our society. And I was thinking, if we actually do bhajan and hearing of the pastimes as service to our spiritual master, like if the desire is sincere enough, we always will approach our spiritual master and will ask, Guru Maharaj, how my hearing can please you? What should I hear? How should I hear? And we will always get a guidance, I guess. So, and if we do it in such a way, so we always hearing right things, and it's not, and we can be sure that it's not a sahaji or something else.
Sometimes when your Guru Maharaj is having a private conversation with Niranjan Maharaj or something, you may say, Guru Maharaj, can I go? And here you may say, no, you're not allowed to, right? And for his pleasure, then you say, yes, Gurudev, whatever you want. That's beautiful. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Piney. Anybody else any reflection they want to share? Prabhuji, anything? Can I hand you this mic? I'm sorry.
more like maybe like a question, comment.
Okay.
So you begin your lecture explaining how these higher topics are actually given by Srila Prabhupada to everyone. And so I was wondering, when we are talking about the adhikari or the qualification, in which level of deepness is refers, like for instance, so we're qualified to, everybody is qualified to read the Krishna book, in a sense that because we're given it, and also the prayers to Tulsi, so new bhakti. But is it that so when it comes to talk, for instance, of to share with others about the glories of Tulsi, or we talk about the prayer, or we talk about Lord Chaitanya, so there must be different level of deepness and also limitations, because I may even want to go deep into Lord Chaitanya with a certain audience, or ask questions to my Guru Maharaj, but I'm limited by my lack of knowledge on the topic. But there are other people like who are not devotees, like scholars, and they have the capacity to talk further into these topics. Like there's one great scholar who wrote a book on Lord Chaitanya, and so he goes deeper. But so I'm thinking of the adhikari qualification in terms of there's one that is a limitation, just because you, even if you want to go deep, you're not allowed because of lack of understanding, or because you haven't been exposed to the topic. But I would like if you can mention something about the limitation of the adhikari for when we have access to all the information that is there. But what is the adhikari at that point? Once we, like a scholar, for instance, that he got the knowledge, but is he qualified to speak to an audience of Vaishnavas? And also one who is practicing devotional service, but he's not very advanced. And so at one point, at which level one can practice for speaking?
We should understand the depth of bhakti, and we can answer this question in many different ways. One simplistic way perhaps might be to say the scholar can't understand, even though he's saying something he doesn't really understand. But that, I find that simplistic, because we don't know. Maybe he was initiated in his last life, and because of that, maybe he has something substantial to offer. George Harrison inspired a lot of people in Krishna Bhakti, but it seems clear if you study his life, he was not following 4 regulated principles. He wasn't chanting 16 rounds, but he was dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said something about him, as far as I understand, practicing in a previous life also. So it's not so simplistic. A child may come, and a child may understand something in a deeper way for the first time hearing something than a sannyasi who's been practicing for 50 years, theoretically. This is the amazing nature of bhakti. It's the amazing nature of relationships. If we think about it, someone can write a book or read a book about you, and maybe they do their PhD thesis on you, but they don't understand anything about you. Whereas someone else who just meets you in 5 minutes may just click with you and understand you in a very deep way. This is a mundane example of bhakti. So one point is that Srila Prabhupada gave us these prayers, and I was repeating again and again that a nivedana daro, daro means to carry. I have this nivedan, this desire, this proposition, this thing, this request that I'm carrying. A nivedana daro, sakya anugata koro. Please make me anugata, following the sakis, which means to make me a manjari. I never heard Srila Prabhupada explain that. And that's an interesting point, and we should acknowledge that. But Srila Prabhupada also gave us that every day. So what does it mean? What can we conclude from that? I would suggest that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to eventually understand it and wanted us to eventually mean it. But he saw that if I speak about this right now, they won't understand. Just like a small child, there's many things you want to tell them, but you can't tell them everything in the beginning. But you're hoping later on they may actually get it. You give them some book or something, and some facts are there, but they can't really understand it yet at that point. So bhakti is such a multi-leveled thing. To give another example, what if someone is blind and they can't read the books? Can they advance in bhakti? Of course they can. What if they're deaf and they can't hear? You could play an audio book for them. They can't hear. They can also advance. They can read Braille. They can touch prasadam. They can touch the deity. They can touch the devotees, and they may become more advanced than us. Because if you say that bhakti can only be present when someone reads, or bhakti can only be present when someone hears the recordings, then you're saying that bhakti is dependent upon those things. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Madhurya Kadambini gives a long explanation about how bhakti is swarat. Bhakti is independent. It's not dependent on any of those things. It's completely independent. So when we have this kind of conundrum like you're mentioning, how is it, some new person, should they hear that? Yes, they should hear. They may not understand what in the world. I remember the first time I saw Tulsi Puja. Okay, this is kind of ethnic, kind of a cultural thing. They worship plants. I like plants. I used to also sometimes meditate on trees and try to talk to trees. And I was kind of a strange person before I joined. But I could kind of relate to that. But I could not understand Tulsi and this, A Nivi Dhanadara Sakyarano Gata Koro. Please let me become a gopi. If you tried to explain that to me, I wouldn't have understood that. But I came and I said, these prayers, and by saying these prayers, what's the point? Is Tulsi going to be so impressed that this person coming in off the street has such deep devotion, is saying it with such conviction? He can't even understand the words. I used to be the bhakta leader in LA, and it was Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Caitanya Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, you're back. We lost you for about a minute.
I can't hear you. Did I sound set up? Just give me a second here. Window? Caitanya, can you hear me okay? I think we'll now be able to hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Prabhu.
Yeah, we can hear you also. Thank you. Sorry about that. Our connection dropped. So I was just mentioning how, what is the benefit, what is the point of a brand new person coming and singing these prayers to a plant, and trying to become a woman, Is Tulsi supposed to be impressed by that? You got some guy coming off the street. We used to have people in the LA temple come, living on the street. They hadn't taken a bath week or something, and they come in and they maybe they give them a songbook and what is the point of that? I like this with the pronunciation of the devotee. I was mentioning also when I used to train the new bhaktas in Los Angeles, we would hear the pronunciation. It was really strange. But there's one devotee who would sing a prasadam song, and what he would sing every day, he'd sing, "Sorry, I forgot the doll." That's what he thought was being said. So what is the benefit of all this? And even if someone, maybe they don't sing, sorry, I forgot to go, but maybe they sing, Seva Adi Koro Dia Koro Nijadasa, which is really bad pronunciation, Tulsi prayers, has a different meaning. But they're saying that for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. They're singing that because they want to please Prabhupada, because they want to make advancement. That's the benefit. That's the point. And if someone is coming, Srila Prabhupada, there's some, Krishna Kor may remember this, I don't know, Brahma just sometimes told this, and I don't remember what it was. If somebody asked Prabhupada, we can't follow everything, we can't be 100% Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada said something like, you correct me, I don't know, if you're 90%, it's a Prabhupada. The Prabhupada said something like, you 75% or something.
60%. Surrender 60% and then
60%, and I'll carry the rest of you. And my grandma used to comment on it. And it's a very, very deep thing. It's an individual thing. We can't say that Dr. Thakur said that, or Dr. Siddhanta, or even that Srila Prabhupada said that for every single person on the planet. That's a debatable thing. At least he said it for his disciples who were there. Guru's mercy is a very, very special thing. I'm trying to please Guru. So Srila Prabhupada gave us his prayers. Incidentally, just about these Tulsi prayers, I did a little research on this interesting thing, a couple of interesting points. One is that Vrinda Tulsi Deva Priya Kesavasha Krishna Bhakti Kali. Nobody says Vishnu Bhakti. It's not given Vishnu Bhakti in any books. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada approved Krishna Bhakti. In the company of the first Hare Krishna songbook, they put, the Chitananda, the translator, they put Krishna Bhakti Kali. Prabhupada wrote a photo saying, this is our standard. Which I don't know if Prabhupada read through it or not. I can't promise that, but Prabhupada did say that. And what Prabhupada wrote the letter yesterday, Govinda Dasi earlier and said Vishnu Bhakti, but he also misspelled some of the words and a little different. In any case, I don't know anybody who says Vishnu Bhakti because it's not our philosophy. We're not praying Sri Lakshmi Narayan, we're not praying to go to Vaikuntha. We're praying for Radha Krishna praying. That's the way that the song is given. Every Bengali Sanskrit book that I've seen, we have a collection of them. I did a little research on this. Incidentally, this song, the Tulsi prayers that we sing every day, they're not sung in any Gaudiya math. In fact, they're outlawed. Isn't that interesting? They're outlawed. So where did Srila Prabhupada get them? And why did Srila Prabhupada give them? And why are they outlawed? That is your question. They're outlawed because they're considered to be too intimate and too high. I mean, that's a pretty high thing. That I'm praying that you make me into it. That's a very, very high thing. Srila Prabhupada perhaps thought we were not going to understand Bengali anyway. And we may sing Seva Adi Koro, which means something like make me the first in service. So saying Seva Adhikara, giving me the Adhikar, giving me the Seva Adhikar, the service qualification. And we mispronounce so many things. Does that mean because we mispronounce that there's no benefit? Well, if you say that, then we're going to cry. Because practically there's nobody who pronounces it. In Russia, it's a Krishna. And it's not pronounced correctly. And in West Bengal, it's a Rama. And in Malaysia, they say Krishna. And so will the real Christians stand up? And is somebody going to get a benefit or not? Yes, they get benefit, of course, because they're trying to please Srila Prabhupada. So this is my thought, and the thought of you, that you least 60%, and I'll pay the rest. I'll pray the rest for you. Just stop as much. We're depending on that much. And we're singing this song for this pleasure. Even if we do it. Okay. All right. Anybody else sharing the room? Any questions you want to share? Okay.
I just wanted to thank
you
for the research you've done, because every temple in space, they all sing the Vishnu.
Not every temple. Bhubaneswar, don't. Somebody's in my foot, right? Dinabandhu Prabhu
In
is,
United States.
Dinabandhu Prabhu is ferocious.
United States.
Oh, United States. I
Yeah.
don't know if they do in Ypsilanti. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that area, I don't think they did, but maybe most of them, they may do. And they have a good reason, and I don't mind. If we want to address this subject, and my purpose is not to create a disturbance. I mean, Mahaprabhu said we should do like this. No, do follow your authorities. I can think of at least two good reasons to chant Vishnu Bhakti. Maybe two. I can think of 4 or 5 good reasons to chant Krishna Bhakti. 3 good reasons to chant Vishnu Bhakti. One is because Vishnu can also mean Krishna. The second is that Srila Prabhupada said it. He wrote that, and someone's thinking that because Prabhupada gave that. That's a very good reason. Why argue with that? Third reason is that's what's done in the temple, because we have a certain standard. And the temple leaders are there. And temples, hello people, are like schools. And schools are meant for training new students. And you may have a different mood in your home, in your personal ashram. But we respect the school and we respect the teachers because they have a certain purpose to train new people. 4 or 5 good reasons to chant Krishna Bhakti. Well, one is that's our philosophy. Siddhanta Tostadevi, Shisha Krishna Sarupa, the Krishna Krishna Rasamesha, that's what we do. This is a verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that although in terms of Siddhanta, Krishna and Narayan are abated and non-different, in terms of rasa, Krishna is superior. And we want Krishna. That's our philosophy. We're praying to Tostadevi for Krishna Bhakti, not for Vishnu Bhakti. Second reason, because Srila Prabhupada approved that Sangha. Third reason, because nobody else outside our line. Prabhupada told the devotees in the case of the Panchata mantra, because originally Prabhupada was singing Bhaja Sri Krishna Caitanya, Bhaja Sri Krishna Caitanya, Jayadvaita Gadadhara. He's singing Jayadvaita and singing Bhaja Sri Krishna. He sent the devotees, here in the early recordings, Prabhupada sent some devotees to Mayapur, Navadvip, and said, you go around the different mutts and see how they sing it. And they came back and said, Prabhupada, we're doing Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhupada, which is Shri Advaita. And so then Prabhupada made that the standard. By doing that, I feel personally that Prabhupada set a standard that we should understand the proper way of mantra chanting. And maybe sometimes Prabhupada might have even given something a little different, but ultimately we should do what is authorized. And all the songs, even in our Islam, Bengali song, it says, Bendai Tosadeva Priyate Savasya Krishna Bhakti. It says Krishna Bhakti, even in our Islam, Bengali song. And if you look in the original Islam songbook, which I did, and I looked, and then I found later editions had said Vishnu Bhakti. So I contacted the DVT, and I don't want to say names because I really don't like all these controversies, and these are wonderful devotees. But I spoke with the senior editor, and he admitted to me, he said that he changed it to Vishnu Bhakti because Prabhupada wrote in this letter to Govinda Dasi. That was his reason for changing it. Although Prabhupada apparently approved Krishna Bhakti to begin with.
But it's always like it's the wind, the rain goes.
Yeah. Dinabandhu Prabhu in Vrindavan, he's a Tulsiman, right? He's been the king. He can't follow it. He's Krishna Bhakti all the way. Because that's what the sadhus will say. That's what everybody says. Anyway, we're not trying to make a controversy about it. There's no reason for that. In the temple, if I go to some temple and they're chanting Vishnu Bhakti, I kind of try to avoid it. Let's chant Krishna Bhakti quietly. But if I'm actually the false prayers, maybe absolutely Krishna Bhakti, understanding what's Krishna. Just because I don't want to destroy Krishna. All right, anybody else have anything? Okay, it's really good. We'll go ahead and stop them. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhaktivedanta ki, Gopamanandi Hari Hari Bol, Mancha Prabhupada, Thank you, Chaitanya.